All right, we are back and better than ever. Still no snow on the ground. Although it was rumored today by someone else on this panel, and we'll get to that in a second, that there was wet snowflakes, that four-letter dreaded S word that we talk about in this month and next month. Welcome in, everybody. Great to see you all here on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. New logo in the background. We're brought to you, as always, by Rebich Investments. Super happy to be back with you tonight in what is now a week until Thanksgiving. Gents, you guys getting your food preparations underway?
Oh, I'm ready.
Wayne, where's your chef hat? I know you have one.
I have a chef apron. I don't have a chef hat. But we traveled down to Nashville to see the daughter earlier this summer. And there's the oldest or second oldest chocolate factory in the country in Nashville. So we made our own chocolates.
Oh, no kidding. What'd you make? Wow. What kind?
It's called like Goo Goo Clusters. It's pretty cool. So obviously my go-to was chocolate and peanut butter. We've had that discussion about recently.
we have, yes.
So anything that way.
All right.
Is the Goo Goo Clusters.
All right. I'm a big fan. Nick, I'm sure you've got, what, 2 of every dish that you're making here?
Listen, I'm not making anything, but I'm prepping. You know how, like,
yeah,
coach, you know how it is when you practice before a big game, right? You're getting the reps in, you're running the scheme. So, I'm just getting my large plates of dinner in preparation for that Thanksgiving meal so that I'm ready for game time.
Hey, timing's everything.
That's
the
right.
Turkey can't be done if the stuffing's not ready.
That's right.
And you always forget to put the biscuits in or pull them out. Where's the biscuits? We didn't put them in. Where's the biscuits? They're burnt.
Oh, wait, I smell them. Yep.
There's definitely some coordination that needs to take place on Christmas Day. Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day. Wow.
It's funny because, Jonathan, I can imagine that your family's got some good Thanksgiving dishes. We're going to talk about Thanksgiving, too, a little bit in later episodes. But, like, everyone, I feel like, prepares earlier for Thanksgiving than any other holiday. Christmas, yeah, you got to wrap gifts, and that's all fun and games or whatever. But like Thanksgiving is like it's almost as if you're the number 1 seed in a bye week. You got to prep 2 weeks early for this whole thing. If you started now, you're already late.
Oh yeah, like when I go to my grandmother's house, like it's a week in advance, and there's already food being prepared and everything. Like the kitchen smells great. There's a bunch of stuff already done that you can't touch for another like 3 or 4 days until Thanksgiving. Like it's a very big preparation process and a very long preparation process. You guys are talking about what you're making and what you're doing. I'm just busy sending requests home. Like, have this ready when I get there. I have a long drive. I'm gonna come off the road and be ready to eat.
Jonathan is gonna be, when he gets off the road, you will never see a man eat more food than Jonathan Williams. Jonathan Williams when he gets off the road, man. Hey, speaking of Thanksgiving, we want to make a mention that tomorrow we've got a special episode. Sean Pebbles of the Cleveland Cavaliers will join us. We're going to talk a bit of Bills. And tomorrow, stay tuned because the 4 of us are going to be doing a draft, fantasy football style, of our favorite Thanksgiving food. So we're going to see who's got the best lineup ever. We don't know who has the number 1 pick, so no one's been able to pre-scout. But I did get these guys' power rankings list for Thanksgiving food. There's a lot of differences. Let me just say that right now.
There's only one 101, so I'm just saying that ahead of time.
That's true. That's
Check
true.
that out tomorrow.
No trades, by the way. You are not allowed to trade. So that's going to be coming up tomorrow. But hey, coming up tonight, we got a couple of great things happening. We're going to be giving out our awards for our District 10 football awards this year from the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Now, of course, we know there are still 2 teams left in D10, Wilmington and Hickory, that are playing. So respect to those 2 teams who are in the state playoffs. But because the Erie and Crawford County teams are out, we're going ahead and giving our awards today. The awards that we're going to be giving out: Team of the Year, Coach of the Year, Comeback Team of the Year, and the team that has your eye for 2025. So we're going to look a bit towards the future as well as we get ready for the year. Plus, before this game starts with the Steelers and Browns, because I'm sure many of you are simulcasting us right now, our previews and predictions for that game, which kicks off in about 15 minutes. And yes, there is a TV in the back of the studio. Yes, we are watching. So if our eyes are like that direction, now you know.
Yeah, no, I'm not missing the camera. I'm just watching the game. I will be checked out for the majority of this game. Listen.
I know.
Okay. Just
Wayne's on in half part because of that. His Ravens aren't playing today. It probably.
I thought I wasn't. I was on because my Lancers aren't playing tomorrow.
No,
we didn't want to.
We didn't want to go. We didn't want to go there, Wayne. We don't.
Hey, life's hard, man. That's
I know. What a season though for you guys. And Jonathan will try to be reining us in when things are necessary. Hey, by the way, in case you're missing our sponsorship logos that are in the corners and on the screen, we are brought to you and Howard and presented by Rebich Investments. And they keep financial advice simple. Rebich Investments has all of what you need for your financial guidance and advice. For more information, make sure to visit their website, www.rebageinvestments.com, or call today at 814-734-3433. Again, Rebage Investments, 814-734-3433. Thanks to Todd Rebage and crew for sponsoring and being a part of our show. Love having them on board. Todd called me yesterday, asked if my Thanksgiving plans were all in order. I told him, heck no, I have a young kid and one on the way. We just figure it out as time goes on. All right, hey gents, I got a game in about 15 minutes. Steelers Browns. Let's just start with this with Cleveland Pittsburgh, because I think we talk all the time about, right, Mike Tomlin has trap games. There are always games in the season, whether it's road games or Thursday games or whatever, where it just seems like Pittsburgh just doesn't come out to play. In theory, they already have that game this year with Indianapolis. Right. Is this a trap game for Pittsburgh, guys? And as we're getting close to kickoff, are you concerned about Pittsburgh knowing the emotional win they had on Sunday, now going on the road to play Cleveland on Thursday night?
I just looked at the stat the last 6 times. They're 1-4-1. They're -9 in turnover and 15 points a game. I did not know that. So that would make me concerned. On the other side, the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson, they don't lose in prime time. So, that's a heck of a counterbalance right there. So mature team, great leadership. Don't think there's any such thing for the Steelers as a trap game.
Now, it's interesting that you talk about the night game success for Mike Tomlin, yet Thursday night is the worst that he's ever been in his career. He's 2-8 in Thursday night games. I believe he's 0-7 on the road on Thursday night games. Still looking for a first win on Thursday evening. Jonathan, it's interesting because we talk all the time about, okay, when division games happen, you throw the records out the window. My concern is that this is exactly what's going to be the case tonight with division games. What say your thought on this game tonight?
Well, last week we had our Russell Wilson topic come up, and we basically said that if he found a way to pull out a win last week, that we were going to be on his bandwagon for the rest of the way. So in the spirit of that, I'm not doubting Pittsburgh. They haven't shown me that they are going to lose a game that they should win yet to this point. So I'm gonna put my faith in Pittsburgh. I'm gonna put my faith in Russ and put faith in them to do the job that they should do. This Cleveland team is bad. This Cleveland team has been bad, like horrendous. I don't need to say anything further about how bad this Cleveland team has been. Like it just hasn't been good. So there's no reason why Pittsburgh should stumble in this game. So I'm gonna put trust in Mike Tomlin and Russell Wilson to do what they need to do.
Ask Isaac if he's on that Russell Wilson bandwagon yet.
Not yet,
because he won't be. He won't. We can't get him.
Not yet.
I don't think this is a trap game, but I do worry about this game, and it's two things. One, Sunday against the Ravens was a dogfight. I mean, it was an absolute just brawl. I mean, more of a fight than Paul and Tyson. I mean, this game, that Ravens game, so they are
that was such a disappointing fight.
I was there.
Wait, at the Paul fight?
No, at the Ravens Steelers.
Oh man,
okay.
I was about to say, I'm like, wait a minute, wait, whoa,
whoa. I know where you were.
Yeah, Friday night I was getting punched in the face.
Yeah, that's true. I saw you there too.
I got hit more than Paul did.
but for me, so I think coming out of that Ravens game, they're exhausted. So I think that's you're already coming in on a short week after a tough game. They're going to be maybe a little slow tonight. I know Cleveland's not playing great football. But for me, the key to this game is going to be Minkah Fitzpatrick, because I think the biggest change you've seen from Watson to Winston has been Winston is just passing every chance he get. I heard it on, so I know Shy here that I listen to fantasy football podcasts because we've talked about my team more often than we probably should have. But I'm listening to one the other day, and the fantasy footballers, and they said, most teams have a check down, right? Most quarterbacks check down to the running back, check down to the tight end. Well, Jameis Winston just has a chuck down. He's not throwing it short. He is going to chuck that ball as far as he can to get it out. And I mean, you look at him over the last couple of games. Last week against New Orleans, he threw for 30 for 50 or 30 for 46 for 395 and 2 touchdowns. Before the game before that against the Chargers, he threw for 235 and his first start 334 against Baltimore. So it's going to come down to Minkah Fitzpatrick. Can he play that center field role? Can he pick off Winston a couple times? Because Watt is obviously going to get his, but they're going to need some help in the defensive backfield. The Steelers are, if they have a chance to win this game.
I'll tell you what, Wayne, I want to get your thoughts on this because you watched the Steelers last week being the Ravens fan, and we saw the defense for Pittsburgh play so well against Lamar, who's a mobile quarterback, right? They forced him in the pocket, really couldn't do much of anything outside running. And now you face Jameis Winston tonight. But what worries me for Pittsburgh is that offense. And Nick made a good point. I'm not on the Russell Wilson train yet. I'm not saying he's played badly, but he didn't look great against the Ravens defense that in the passing game has done nothing, Wayne. They're one of the worst passing defenses. So is there a concern with you for Russ? Because when I look at Russ, I think he's a guy to me that if the fire is burning, if the pajamas are on, if the blankets are cozy, if the cookies are warm, then it's all well and good. If everything is working well and they're running the football and Russ just has to play that system quarterback, then they're fine. The moment he has to throw the ball down the field or make tight throws, he struggles. Is there any worry with you with Russ? Because that's what I see. I see a guy who is so calculated and so meticulous in his career that if anything goes off the rails, he's not a guy who can bring them back from that.
Yeah, I think he's spoken about it a lot. It's confidence, and you're right. Russell Wilson is not in his prime of his career where he's a drop back quarterback, and he doesn't have the type of arm, to Nick's point, that Jameis Winston does. He's an under center play action pass guy. So, the illusion of the run, getting the linebackers up, getting him on the perimeter is his game. And, the Ravens, as bad as they are in pass defense, are really good in run defense. So if you take away the run, you take away the play action pass, you make him one-dimensional. He's not built, to stand back there and be a 3-step, 5-step drop back guy. He's short. He's not a traditional pocket passer. So, can Cleveland take away the run and the play action pass and force him to be in the gun and try to throw the ball downfield? That's where he's going to struggle.
Let's throw this out here, too, before we make our picks, guys, because I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Cleveland. I joked on Monday in our overreaction segment that, Kevin Stefanski is going to be searching for a new job for his Christmas present. Dion and Shadur come to Cleveland. But, I think we all agree Kevin Stefanski's a good coach, right? He's won 2 coaches of the year in 4 years. He's helped this Browns offense become something that they weren't at all in the early 2000s. But is he coaching for his job tonight? I'm not saying that he's going to get fired tomorrow. But if they get blown out when they kick off in 5 minutes and it's 28-3 or 31-10, you're sitting at 2-9. And what? I mean, is this a game where if you're Kevin Stefanski, it's win or lose close or you're out?
Yeah. In my opinion, it definitely is, just because of the state of, I feel like all professional sports right now, everything is really knee jerk. Yeah. You don't have a lot of time to establish something. You don't have a lot of time to build. You don't get a lot of leeway or a lot of wiggle room or time to lose. It's what have you done for me yesterday? What have you done for me? What are you doing for me right now? And there's no real stock being placed on what you've done 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Nobody cares how many Coach of the Year awards you have. If you're not winning for us right now, we're going to go find somebody that can. So that's kind of just the state of the NFL. That's the state of a lot of professional sports leagues right now. You don't have that freedom. You don't have that, I guess, benefit of the doubt as a coach anymore. So right now they got to keep this game at least close. If you go out here and you get blown out primetime television, Thursday night football, it's not going to be good for Kevin Stefanski.
No, I agree, and that's my concern.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, could they get something for him? Well, let me back up.
Sean Payton trade?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going, because I'm thinking as soon as they let Stefanski go, there are 5, 6, 7 teams that'll swoop in and sign him the next day. Mm-hmm. The collapse, I know he's getting a lot of heat for the collapse of Cleveland. It is not his fault
at all.
I think he's being forced to play Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully he's not being forced to play Aaron Rodgers.
That's another dumpster fire.
You're already seeing that happen. Deshaun Watson, I think he's being forced to play Deshaun Watson. So I think if it comes down to, if ownership is coming to him and saying, okay, hey, if we're going to run this back next year, you're going to play Deshaun Watson again, I think they could get something for him. So if Stefanski says, no, I'm not going to do that, I want out, he is a high profile enough of a coach that they could go trade him for a pick here or there, a couple picks, something like that. There's a lot of desperate teams there. I mean, the Jets are one of them that are going to need a head coach here coming up soon. So I don't know that he'll just get flat out cut. I think if it comes down between Watson or Stefanski coming from ownership, I think there is a chance that he goes somewhere, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Cleveland try and get something out of him.
But you can't cut all the players, right? I guess you can, but at some point you have to look at it and be like, and I understand his it's almost like the Mike Tomlin thing, except
Sure.
Kevin Stefanski, I don't think has the same collateral with Cleveland that Tomlin does with Pittsburgh. At some point, you have to
say that Kevin Stefanski doesn't have the same collateral with Cleveland ownership.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Tomlin
Okay,
has.
fair. Yeah, you're right.
For
You're
sure.
right.
Pittsburgh ownership,
That's fair.
and I think that's the key. I think that's the whole key, right? There are just franchises and ownerships that understand things a little differently than others, and this ownership in Cleveland certainly doesn't understand.
No, they just want to win and
No,
win now.
no idea.
Yeah.
And look,
You're being really nice, Wayne.
well, and I think
Well,
Wayne
here's what Cleveland should do. Hire Belichick as head coach, Nick Saban as defensive coordinator, and Brian Billick as offensive coordinator. Next segment, please.
there is
Man.
absolutely no chance that happens.
Why?
That would
Maybe not the coordinators, but I do see the head coach. If there is an opening
Why?
there,
You don't think
Well,
Saban would
I
go
think,
back?
Well, I think it goes to
He'll
your
be the head
point.
coach at West Virginia next year.
It goes to your point of the ownership, right? I think Jimmy Haslam is so stuck on it has to work with Watson. It has to work with Watson. He doesn't want to hire a head coach. Bill Belichick's not playing Watson.
No.
He's going to
No.
bench him. And Bill Belichick has to have control, not just over the roster, but over the general manager decisions, over the drafting decisions. If you think Bill Belichick's coming in there to have Deshaun Watson play quarterback, you're crazy. And I don't think Jimmy Haslam's going to hire anybody
no,
that is not willing to play
he
Deshaun.
needs a
quarterback.
passive coach, right?
Right. So, I think, to me, the first guy that pops off the page is Robert Saleh. He's already had to do it once with Aaron Rodgers. He's a defensive coach. He can keep helping the defense. He's gonna end up playing Deshaun because he did no offense. All these
Robert
Cleveland.
Saleh's not doing that again.
Well,
I
and let's
understand.
not get ahead of ourselves. I mean, you've been on the Stefanski bandwagon for weeks. I just don't see it happening.
Well, I don't
really
want it to
don't.
happen. I think he's a great coach.
What do you think has a higher chance of happening? Stefanski getting fired or you believing in Russell Wilson?
Maybe we'll make that our poll question.
Oh, man.
Or 31 as the over-under tonight. You're talking about being blown out. Someone's scoring 31. Isn't that the over-under?
Man, I'll tell you what. If that happens, both might actually happen. I may believe in Russ and Kevin might be on a plane out the door over Lake Erie.
I'd bet your wings, but I still owe you from the last round.
Yeah, well, I
too.
I have a couple. Dustin Hopkins just kicked the ball out of bounds. No, he kicked it to the 11-yard line to start the game. So I guess we should make picks to make him somewhat official. Wayne, who wins Steelers Browns tonight?
Pittsburgh 19-18.
It's close. Wayne knows it's not going to be a blowout. Jonathan, who do you have?
Pittsburgh 24-12.
Jonathan's also going with the Steelers. Nick, over to you.
I got Cleveland by 3. You know me, I'm terrible at picking scores, but I'll give you their Cleveland plus 3. The weather is awful there tonight, so you're going to need just Winston to
Field goal kickers.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Well, Chris Boswell did that for Pittsburgh the last game. I think the Browns are going to win this game too. I just think for Pittsburgh, it's a short week. It's an emotional win off a division team. And look,
That would have been a perfect time for a first play touchdown. Man, I needed that.
I think it's at some point.
The diamond formation.
Yes.
I love the diamond.
At some point, Wayne's so excited with all the guys in the box.
You might want to block the 3 technique, though.
This is going to turn into an X's and O's podcast.
We're not going to get to our D10 play. We're going to get through Paul.
5 offensive linemen and 3 backs. So you have 8 guys that could potentially block the 3 technique, and nobody does.
Now, this is a podcast I would listen to.
Yeah, I think Cleveland. I think Cleveland wins the game tonight. I've got Nick Chubb in at fantasy running back. I'm going to regret that pick, but I just think at some point Cleveland's due for a good game because I just think even with their struggles, I think they're still due for a good game because they have a talented enough roster. Jaylen Warren keeps doing what he did. It's going to be a long night for the Browns.
Now, there's the difference maker.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Because that was the difference maker in Baltimore's game. Warren, change of pace, perimeter run, get away from that 3-4 big guys inside. Yep. That's the only success they had. The running game opened some things up in the passing game. That's the key. This kid needs more carries.
Yeah. And again, coming off of injury in the first few games, but he's such a shifty back. And I also think, too, for Pittsburgh, you have to figure out what you're doing with running back next year because Najee Harris didn't get his 5th-year option picked up. Jalen Warren's sitting there with only a couple of years left. At some point, you're going to have to make a call because I don't think you can keep them both. I don't think Najee's going to accept a deal. That's what Pittsburgh probably wants to pay him. It's going to be interesting to see how that ends up working out because you keep in mind, like, you can't pay both. So you got to figure out whether one's better than the other. All right, we're going to keep tabs on the Steelers-Browns game throughout the show. We're split on picks. We'll see how it works out today. Again, a reminder, our show, as always, is brought to you every single show by Rebich Investments, keeping financial advice simple. For more info, you can visit their website at www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can call their number first thing tomorrow morning at 814-734-3433. All right. Make sure, by the way, to like us, subscribe, comment, wherever you may be watching, YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitch. We're live on all those platforms tonight. And for those of you who are still watching, thanks again for being with us with the Steelers-Browns game going on. We hope to give you some context on that. All right. Big part of the night tonight, we wanted to give out our awards for our District 10 football season. Now, again, we know Hickory and Wilmington are still in the state quarterfinals, and we wish both those teams good luck. But with the Erie, Crawford County local teams being out, we wanted to give out our awards. So tonight, the panel, in addition to Paul Adamczyk, is giving out their awards for the high school football season. We have 4 categories tonight. Our 4 categories include the following: Team of the Year, Coach of the Year, Comeback Team of the Year, and the team you're most excited to look at next season. We don't know, except for me. I know everyone because I'm the host of the show. We don't know who picked who, so we're going to reveal them right now. We'll start with Paul Adamczyk, who is not here tonight, but he wanted to give out his awards. Paul is going with the Hickory Hornets as the Team of the Year in District 10, a team that, again, is still at the moment in the state playoffs in 3A. They play tomorrow night. Marshall McCormick gets his Coach of the Year from GM. Of course, an incredible season that ended in a heartbreaker last week in the Class 4A first round. Comeback Team of the Year, he gives to the Corey Beavers, a team that won 3 games a year ago, only lost 3 games this season, and a 2025 team to watch, the Mercyhurst Prep Lakers. Guys, I'll tell you what, there's great picks from Paul. I think when you look at these 4 teams more than anything, in Marshall McCormick, the one thing that bleeds off the page to me is consistency. All these teams were consistent the entire year when you played a couple of them on the at least Corey on the season.
Yeah, Corey, Jeff Goodwill did a fantastic job. Probably one of our most competitive games. Physical, can run the ball, play great defense, can throw the ball. So balanced, a kicking game, obviously. So, hats off to them, And then, of course, Hickory, Hickory is the epitome. They are the standard. They've been the standard. Quarterback's Telez, right? His last name.
Yeah, Senator Telez.
Just having a fantastic year, very well coached, play great defense, can run the ball, can throw the ball, a challenge for anyone. Hopefully they continue on.
And you're going to see more of those teams that Paul has up on his board, on other people's board as well. Jonathan Williams, we're going to go to you for the stage next year, and we're going to pop your awards up on the page. You have a couple of different ones. In terms of your Team of the Year, you go with General McLean, and it seems like the obvious pick, but just explain to us your reasoning behind GM winning your Team of the Year.
GM was probably the most exciting football team to watch all season this year. Yes, because of what they do on the offensive side of the football, but also like just watching a couple of their games, and it's probably because I watched them a tad more than I watched anybody else this season, but just watching a couple of their games and watching them get after it on both sides of the ball, like those football games, and especially the ones that they won big. The style of football that they play is just so exciting to watch, and they were so consistent offensively. It was almost like a masterclass in offensive football. Okay, big play, get on the ball, don't give a team a chance to breathe. They're snapping the ball with 20, 30 seconds left on the play clock still. Like it was just fun to watch, and for me, they were able to be consistent in playing a certain way and playing that way all season long, all the way to the bitter end. I mean, the games that they lost were very close games. They were games that could go either way. So for me, they were the most complete team that I saw personally and that I witnessed this past season.
Jack Corey is your Coach of the Year, and what a ride that he's had in 3 seasons with the Seneca Bobcats. First year, he has a lot of senior-laden running backs. Gosh darn it, Chris Boswell, I just picked you up in fantasy football. All right, anyway, back to this. Last year, they struggle after losing their senior class. Then they come back and they have another great season with a boatload of wins. I think for you, and maybe I'm wrong, but for Jack Corey, he's such a coach that can do more with less, right? Seneca's not a big school, but they have guys who are essentially will themselves to win games.
Yeah, not a huge school at all, but the turnaround that they were able to have, I mean, after losing a lot of seniors, still being able to rip off 8 wins, win games where their quarterback went down and they were playing with backup quarterbacks. Like he was just able to put on a coaching masterclass and get the best out of that team and the best out of that roster, regardless of who was playing, regardless of who was hurt, regardless of who just graduated, who we had. And I mean, they started off the season 3-0 and had everyone on the Bobcat train. Like he was just able to put together a masterclass coaching job this year and really get the most out of that Bobcats.
You and Paul both like Corey for comeback team of the year, and I agree. Jeff Goodwill squad, and we've talked so much about them, about how good that they have been able to transform their program. But your 2025 team to watch, I think you were the only person that picked this team. You like Erie as your team to watch next year.
I liked Erie all season long this year, and they were kind of an enigma a little bit. Like they had so many weapons and they have so many athletes, and they just always felt like they were a play away or a good decision away from being really good this year.
Yeah.
Especially in a couple different games, like you can pinpoint maybe like 2 or 3 plays or 2 or 3 play calls or 2 or 3 decisions to throw the football. Like they were 2 or 3 plays away from being a 7, 8, maybe even 9 win football team this year. I think Coach Andre Henderson has something going there, and I'm just really interested to see how he builds on the momentum from this year. They had a really good year this year, finished with 5 wins, competitive in the D10 championship, competitive with McDowell twice this season in games where they have historically been counted out of that matchup by 2-3 scores. I'm very intrigued to see how he builds upon the momentum that they kind of built up this year with the senior class that they have coming up.
And for Erie, and maybe Wayne, Nick, you guys can touch on this. I think they figured out defense. The defense to me is there. We saw, and when Jonathan and I were at that District 10 championship game, not only did we see consistency on defense, but we saw discipline. And sometimes for Erie, just historically, they've been a program that discipline tends to evade them. And they have great spurts, but at some point they're going to have a moment or a quarter or a half where they just lose control. I don't think we saw that with the defense this year. My question is just going to be, can you have a little bit more consistency in offense, and can you limit some of the big plays that they gave up? But it seems like they're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned it here before. Andre Henderson, heck of a defensive football player at IUP for Lou Tepper, someone I had to work with for 6 years, regarded as probably the greatest defense coordinator in the history of college football. So, Andre learned from the best. And, Andre played disciplined football in a disciplined environment. You didn't run to the football and didn't grade out at 93% for pursuit, you weren't playing. You didn't line up correct and have the 3 A's, alignment, assignment, adjustment, you weren't playing. So fundamentals. Anthony Gates, who played for us at, Edinburgh. Hopefully he was trained well by someone. So it's great to see, some guys that get people lined up, play base defense, play fundamentals, run to the football, tackle, and do all those things that eliminate big plays.
Yeah. We said on Flagship all the time on Mondays, like they're a year away. They're putting it together. Like Jay said, you had, big games against McDowell. First game, you only lose by 4. Second game, you lose by 2 touchdowns, but that was closer than anybody would have thought they were supposed to be. They blow out Meadville 44-7. Yeah, I just think that if they can build that consistency, they figured their scheme out. You could see that, they started out the season 1-4, and then they were able to turn that around, with a 4-2 second half of the season. So like they figured it out. The scheme is there. The team has come together. They're bought in. Can they build that consistency? I can't remember off the top of my head. Paul Johnson, did he graduate? Their quarterback?
Let me make sure. He's a junior. He should have one more year left.
I thought so as well.
One more year left. Tajay Thomas comes back.
Yes.
Some of that offense comes back.
They got a lot of good players coming back for next year. I think next year they might be the comeback team of the year next year.
Yeah, and again, look, just for Erie automatically is McDowell's the team you have to beat, right? And obviously the state playoffs, things become extremely difficult. But the nice thing for the Royals is no matter what happens, that's your matchup. That's who you prepare for at the end of the season. And so for Erie, it's, can we now figure out a way to get to a point where we can play McDowell for 4 quarters? I think they probably played 3 1/3 really good quarters of sound football in that D10 championship game a few weeks back. If you can get to 4, I think they're really going to make some noise. And like Jonathan said, they were 4 points from beating McDowell in that D10 championship, a D10 regular season game. And really, they were one good drive away from having a 21-21 game in the District 10 championship game a few weeks back. So an extrapolation on Jonathan's team to watch for 2025, but a good one. I know it's one of the biggest schools in the area, but for Erie, they're a team that you can look out for 2025. All right, Nick Artman, floor shifts to you. Here's Nick Artman's 2024 District 10 Football Awards. Nope, that's me. I lied. Over to Nick Artman. General McLean, Team of the Year.
Yeah.
We've talked so much about the Lancers, and I'll challenge you here, besides Isaac and Jacob Zeitz, what impressed you most about this Lancer team this season?
Well, they could have used some help on the defensive side of the ball.
Wow.
No,
a little better
wow.
play calling.
I'm just kidding. You had Teague Berger as well. I mean, I don't think you can look past ZZ Top. I mean, yes, they were maybe the ones that got the most pop, being the brothers. The story was there, quarterback and the wide receiver, but you had every part of that offense humming, right? If you needed rushing yards, you hand the ball off, a couple running backs. You had tight ends all over the field. The defense would come up with a couple big stops. So what stood out to me the most was sound football on both sides of the ball, right? And I mean, we like to talk about ZZ Top, and they have the numbers to talk about it. Isaac Zeitz threw for over 2,800 yards and 36 touchdowns. Jacob, as I scroll up here, I think he had 20 more receptions in the second place receiver in District 10. That offense is what impresses you the most. They're putting up over 35 points a game, and the defense is shutting down as well. So I think what impressed me the most was you're watching a high school football team that's playing a college level scheme. And that is something you don't see at the high school level. So any game that you went and watched, they were just impressive to watch.
Wayne, let me ask you before we get to the rest of Nick's awards, because I think when you look at the totality of the season, what was the key to growth for you guys specifically on defense? You talked about, all right, you like a lot of different exotic looks. You watch NFL games at length. What did you have to do as a defense game in, game out to grow over the course of a season? Because again, as you know, high school kids, you really have to be able to coach them and understand what your message is.
Yeah, the biggest thing was, understanding the difficulties we had in defending Newcastle and being able to, kind of shift our way without panicking or without showing panic to the kids. One of the things that, really helps us or in the last couple of years is we've had to defend the wing tee probably 4, 5, 6 times per year. So we run one front and one coverage. So to Nick's point, repetition, sound and simple. And then that creates confidence. So you go back to the 2 Meadville games, right? The first Meadville game, we talked about the breakdowns we had, and largely they were in the 10 personnel grouping. They weren't in the wing tee. I think we gave up 13 points in the wing tee. And then being able to come back, make a few adjustments, and then shut them out. And so in 8 quarters of football, to give up 2 touchdowns to a Meadville team that, probably averaged 40 points. But I think being simple, having repetition, and then not being afraid to move kids around and attempt to put, the kids in the right place. Don't try to fit your kids into a scheme. Try to fit your scheme to your kids. And I think that's something that we've done well. And our kids have been very receptive to, executing once we teach it to them.
And again, a good big congrats to General McLean. We know how difficult the road was to get there, and so close to their state quarterfinal berth that would have been tomorrow. Nick, I almost put down your coach of the year. I'm glad you did, so we could have some diversity in this. But I'll tell you what. Your pick for Mark Sobolewski for coach of the year is a really, really good one, given the injury to Vinny Feliciano early in the season.
Camp Holy.
Yeah.
Feliciano.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Balled
But
out.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm thinking of Feliciano for your next team to watch here. Yeah.
Because that's where I'm going there.
Vinny
too.
Campoli, you're right.
No, I think what impressed me the most was the overcoming of the Campoli injury, right? When you saw that happen early on in the year, you thought this is who that team was built around. Campoli was set to have a great year coming back from the injury last year. And when he went down, you thought, okay, this team is over. But to Fairview's credit, they still finished the year 6-4. They put up a couple really good wins. Harbor Creek, Girard, you expect them to win the Girard game, but the win over Seneca, the win over Fort LaBeouf, those were two, I think, gut check games for them that really stuck out for me. And that comes down to coaching. You lose your starting quarterback, you have Semino come in, and you kind of have a two-headed monster at quarterback for the rest of the year. And that's coaching, right? And then the defense is able to hold some, like I said, holding Northeast to 7. It couldn't hold some of the big teams down, lost, by 40 to Corey and 33 to Titusville. But I think given what they had to overcome and how they finished, yeah, he was the first person that came to my mind for this exercise.
Yeah, and a really good point, too. And you figure, too, the defense was so good down the stretch of the season. The 2 wins you mentioned against Seneca and against Fort LaBeouf, 9 points given up to Seneca, nothing to Fort LaBeouf. And Coach Sobolewski was really emotional after that LaBeouf win, too. I got some interview comments from him afterwards. I think he understands, having coached before at McDowell and big programs in District 10, right, with McDowell and Fairview, that it takes time. It's a process. And I think we can say the same with Erie's. It's not going to take 1 year to turn a program around. You have to have foundational building blocks, as you know, Wayne, as you know, Jonathan, as a former player, to be able to give teams a belief that they can go into a game and win. You can play well and play above your standard for a period of time, but now Fairview's at that level where they know how to win big games. And I think if Coach Sobolewski, for as long as he keeps coaching, continues to do what he's doing, I think it's going to be it's going to be another scary team to watch, because Fairview's always one of those teams where you don't really care about the roster. It's more so the coaching staff, and they've got the coaching staff and the team to be able to get it done. Corey's your comeback team of the year. Nick, we've talked about them already, and I showed too early the hand of Mercier's Prep for your team to watch. Man, Vinny Feliciano's only a sophomore. This kid's going to be a stud.
Just not a team that you expected to do a whole lot coming into this year. Between graduation and, we'll call it, transfers, you didn't really know what this team was going to look like. And for Feliciano to just come out and rush for over 2,000 yards, and I think it was over 10 yards a carry, like you said, as a sophomore, I mean, what do you do for a second act? I don't know, but I'm here for it. And that's the team that I'm excited to watch coming into next year.
I'll tell you what, Wayne, and maybe I have this wrong from the outside perspective, and I know you didn't play Mercier's Prep this year, but you know Coach Root from your time in District 10. They're one of those teams like McDowell that they always seem to win the battle up front. They weren't as big as they were last year. They were one of the biggest teams in District 10 last year, but I think you attribute a lot of Vinny Feliciano's success in the running game with his ability to simply run through open holes because the line made those for him.
Yeah, and I think schematically getting him on the perimeter. So again, it goes back to, you have speed, then you run outside zone, you run toss, you get on the perimeter, or you have speed, you run counter, right? You get them going one way, and you're coming back the other game. So Mercier's Prep, Coach Root. You look at Coach Root, he's a line guy at heart. And again, doesn't matter what level you're at, whether you're at middle school, whether you're in the NFL. You win and lose the football game, in the front 7.
Hang on a minute. Oh,
what was that?
I was really excited to talk about Justin Fields picking up a first down. Well,
That's why he's not the starter.
My Fields theories.
But I don't like the play call.
No.
Yeah, they got quarterback draw to the outside on 4th and 2.
Yeah.
Everybody in the world knew that was coming.
Gosh. And again,
the Ravens apparently didn't know it was coming last week when he came into the game.
No, that's why Justin decided to give him the benefit of the doubt by sliding 3 yards too early. I just think, again, when he's not the starting quarterback, you know what he's doing when he comes in the game. I mean, Arthur Smith hasn't scripted a passing play for him yet.
No, and that's why that's exactly what you have to, because everybody knows, okay, Justin Fields is the guy. He's the athlete. He's the guy you're going to use his legs. You pick up a first down.
You would laugh when he came in the first half last week. So I'm in the upper deck, and he comes in, and I'm like, Q draw, Q run, and everyone in the stands is looking like,
who's this guy?
Like, who? Wait a minute.
What do you
Oh,
mean?
he's right.
And my wife's like, "Would you be quiet? People don't want to hear you."
How was
Get
that?
him on the
How was that
sideline.
experience? By the way, I'm sure you were decked out. And
Oh, I had my
Ravens
Ravens jersey on. So
I'm
I
sure
got
you were treated very nicely.
I got called things. But you got to have thick skin. You got to represent. You can't be afraid. So sent the pictures to all my buddies, and they're like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good."
It's gonna be me and my game.
So
jersey at the
quick.
Clemson game next Saturday.
I can't. Is that a night game, by the way?
No, they gave us a noon kickoff.
Oh,
No,
God. Is
for
it
the
big
rivalry
noon
game?
kickoff? Is it big noon kickoff?
It's not big
No.
noon. It's ESPN sticking it to us because
Oh.
they asked us to move the game to Friday night, and we both said no.
Wow. Yikes. I'll tell you what, TV deals. By the way, quick story, and I'm a Steeler fan, so this isn't going to be well for the team I root for, but my wife and I, a few years back, went to a Steelers game. Ironically, it was the game that the Browns ended up going 0-17 in, right? The last game of the season, right in the Hugh Jackson glory era. Anyway, last game of the year, it's freezing cold. We had free tickets. We're up in the nosebleeds, and it's -30 wind chill, and we're freezing. The fact that Allie didn't leave me after that is unbelievable, given the fact that she's a Patriots fan. So she wears her Patriots coat because simply she's just cold, right? And she's a New England fan. And we're going out to the concession stand to get something to eat or whatever, and a security guard stops her, looks at her coat, sees a Patriots logo, and says, "You should be shot for wearing that."
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh, well, we're off to a good start. We only been dating at the time like 8 or 9 months. And here I am taking her to a game in the freezing cold weather. I should have known that she really loved me then. I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out. All right, Wayne, before we get to mine, we're not going to ask you for a team, coach, or comeback team of the year, but give us a team that you think in 2025 might be a really interesting one to watch, just based on maybe some growth or maturation they have this season.
Sure. I think the team that to watch is Meadville because they were very, very young this year. So you might say, what do you mean? Well, it's coming off 3 or 4 in a row, but really a young team. So I think they have speed at all the skill positions. Probably their best interior players, their left tackle, 10th grader, plays 3 technique. Really imposing, physical looking kid. So I think Meadville, from the people that we've played, certainly is going to be up to the challenge and is now the hunter, not the hunted.
Yeah, and a good pick from Wayne. That will be another interesting year next year in Class 4A with those teams reloading, including GM, who ended up winning it this year. All right, here's my picks for my District 10 football awards. I'm going to go with the one team that none of us have mentioned so far this year, and I think it's been the most consistent team all year in District 10 in terms of where they play, and that's the Wilmington Greyhounds. They moved from 2A to 1A this year. Brandon Fillon has been just such a great head coach, and they have a lot of guys who aren't necessarily incredibly talented players, but they just bully you up front. I mean, their offensive line is such a pleasure to watch. I'm sure, Wayne, you've seen some film from them. It's so hard to keep them off the field. And we saw that in the Greenville game, a Greenville defense who you could make the argument it's the best defense in all of Class 1A. They really stopped teams a lot this past year, including the Cambridge Springs game when the Blue Devil offense was rolling with over 30 points a game. They don't do much in the regular season against them. I just think, and Wayne, you made a good point on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, that Wilmington might be the one team that has the best chance in their class to win a state championship. They're going to have a huge game coming up here on Friday when they get Port Allegheny, who looked really, really good in the first round of 1A. So we'll see. I've got the Greyhounds winning team of the year, and as long as they stay in Class 1A, they're going to be a hard out with whoever ends up playing them. Marshall McCormick, again, is my coach of the year in line with Paul Adamczyk. And when you watch him, you know him. I know him pretty well. And Jonathan, you and I have called the last 2 games for them. What was amazing to me with Marshall is the fact that he knew he had Jacob Zeitz, and a lot of coaches in District 10 would say, all right, I'm just going to center my entire offense around him. And yet I would make the argument that really only 30 to 35% of the plays were designated for Jacob Zeitz in the offense. We saw Teague Berger get going late. We saw Cohen Beachley come in and spell him at running back and have some big plays. Jared Corwin was a big factor in the offense. Kyle McConnell, a guy who we hadn't heard much of all season long, catches the 96-yard touchdown when Jacob comes off the field. So the offense in the 2 games when it was prep and when it was Clearfield and Jacob comes off the field, the offense still put together drives. And I think that's going to bode well for GM in years to come, knowing you lose the Zeitz kids to graduation this year. knowing that you're going to have some new players that are going to be faces. Teague Berger also graduates. I think he was such a big part of the Lancers' success, and he's my coach of the year. And again, Wayne, I obviously know that this team's going to look a little bit different, and Nick and Jonathan, we've said the same thing, but man, this team to me is set up as long as Marshall's head coach.
Well, and I guess that's my question to coach is, who are some players or who's maybe on that watch list for GM coming into next year? Because there's a lot of turnover.
First off, Marshall has done a tremendous job, and it's such a pleasure to be there. In fact, he just texted me. He sent an evaluation form, and he just thanked me for the feedback. But the amount of growth that he's had in 3 years, and you talked about spreading the wealth on offense. To be able to look inward and say, okay, after, a 2023 season where, we didn't fully reach our potentially right, because we centered everything. How do we distribute the ball, and how do we game plan when we know that they're going to double, Jacob? So every week game planning was, okay, what's the plan to take away Jacob? Great. Let's hand the ball off to Teague. Let's throw the ball to McConnell. Let's get the ball, to Corwin out of the backfield. Let's get in the jumbo package, all those things. So I think, hats off to him for continuing to be not only an outstanding head football coach, but a great offensive coordinator. And behind the scenes, he's someone who wants to be great. That's the beauty of me watching, his growth is, it's really important to him, and he really wants to be great. And foundationally, just the relationships he has. We have some fantastic underclassmen. Matty Cairo is a heck of a quarterback. You haven't seen Matty Cairo. Throws a great ball. Could potentially, in terms of being a pure quarterback, maybe be as talented, if not more, than Isaac.
Yeah.
From that standpoint. Corwin coming back. Holler coming back.
Yeah.
Nick Swenson's a heck of a tailback. Doesn't touch the ball very much. Cohen Beachley, who had ankle surgery in the offseason, never really up to speed. Kyle McConnell coming back. Defensively, PJ Mitchell. Corey Weber had a tremendous year for us. Squires. We have a number of young guys. Our biggest area will be replacing those 5 offensive linemen. Yeah. So if we can develop some linemen, I think we have the potential, talent-wise and skill-wise, to be as good, if not better.
And you mentioned all those players coming back. A lot of the ones that you talked about did see a lot of good playing time this season, and that will help this upcoming year when GM, as Wayne mentioned, is going to have to go against the likes of Meadville and Oil City and others who will be reloaded and ready to go with all their younger classmen that will start to become upperclassmen. All right, my comeback team of the year. We made it a clean sweep across the board. The Corey Beavers are my comeback team of the year. Jeff Goodwill proving that he is an outstanding head coach in what was really his breakout year. I know Nolan Carey and Lesher at the tailback position were the 2 big parts of the offense, but you then started to see some other pieces as well, whether it was Frasino or other guys on the outside that were just big pieces down the stretch for the Corey Beavers. They're going to be another team where if they can continue their formula of what they've done this year, they're going to be a tough team to beat next year and beyond as well, and what's always a fun Region 5. And then my 2025 team to watch. And I know they graduate a lot. I know they graduate their quarterback. I know they're going to have to make some changes at running back. But I was so impressed with John Angerer and the Harbor Creek Huskies this year. Every single game they played in region was close. They didn't have any games that, outside of the GM game early in the season that you said, okay, they were clearly outplayed. And I think when you look at this Husky team, whether it's, guys that are going to be graduating or guys that are going to be coming back, the first guy to me that pops off the page, okay, Gavin Zillman returns for Harbor Creek. It's always a school that can pump out a bunch of running backs. And John Angerer has that aura about him where you're going to have to play tough if you're wanting to be on his team. Wayne mentioned a few minutes ago about IUP, right, with Andre Henderson. He cut his teeth where if you didn't have good technique and you didn't play hard, you weren't playing. Same with John Angerer. He benched a couple of his guys this season because of potentially the lack of toughness and whatnot. So I think this Harbor Creek team is going to be tough to beat. They play a certain way, and even if they can diversify the playbook a little bit, they're going to be a tough team out in Region 5 coming up next year when they play that whole slate again, and what's going to be another fun region next year. Guys, the high school football season was an extremely enjoyable one, but the last thought that I have for the season is so competitive. Just so competitive in so many ways. And we saw so many games that came down to the wire and just so many contests that you really didn't know which way they were going, whether it was region standings, whether it was District 10 playoff brackets or whatnot to end the year.
Yeah, you had Fort LaBeouf, who I had dubbed the cardiac kids, of course, before their quarterback went down. 3 straight weeks of just absolute thrillers of finishes of football games. That entire Region 3 was a headache for us throughout the entire season, because we were like, okay, well, if this team beats this team and this team beats this team, but this team beat this, like it was ridiculous as far as the competitiveness and just how close everything was in that region, just across the board. I mean, this is my first full year of D10 Erie County football at the high school level, and just seeing how competitive the teams are across the board, and just even matchups, I think was a big thing this year. You didn't really know which way a game was going, depending on where it was being played at, who was banged up that week. Like there were very few gimmies this season, and it always makes for really good football. So to your point, really competitive, and just, in my opinion, a solid year for the region overall.
Yeah, there was never a game where I felt like, I mean, you could make your picks, right? We did it every week, but there wasn't ever a game where I was like, oh, this team doesn't have a chance. Any given Friday. I mean, whether it was, Corey and Fort LaBeouf, or GM, even the GM Harbor Creek game, we were still kind of even thinking that wasn't going to go as maybe as close as we thought, or be as big of a blowout as we thought. And then McDowell played some tough games this year. They were probably a close second for me for my team of the year, just seeing how they were able to gut out some wins, had a slow start to the season, played some tough Ohio teams, but that offense, I mean, those seniors were just balling out over there. So, I mean, any given Friday this year, it was really tough, and it'll be interesting to see how that changes going into next season.
Man, Wayne, you know this, but every year the competition gets better, and you just got to be key. You got to key in on the fundamentals, right?
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me, coaching and being on the sidelines every week, is how hard every kid on every team played.
Yeah.
We played Warren, who hasn't won a game in 2 years. I don't know if a team played harder against us. And hats off to their staff for having a team that, is 0-15 and still playing hard and competing.
Yeah.
Week in and week out, every kid that you watched competed hard. If you were at the Meadville Oil City playoff game, Oil City, being down, no quarterback, no running back, competed and played hard through the end of the whistle. And, I think that just says a lot about the men that are coaching in District 10, to be able to motivate kids and get them, to play hard and to play hard through adversity. Jonathan, when things aren't going well, it's hard to stay motivated and compete and tough. And I think that bodes well for District 10.
And by the way, the last thought that I'll add to Wayne's point is the kids are playing hard, but I will also say this. This probably, this year and the last year, has been the best group of coaches that I have seen in District 10 as a whole in quite some time. Obviously you have so many guys who have been there a long time, right? You had to face against Ray Collins, who's been doing it for a while. You think of Jeff Root at Mercyhurst Prep, Mark Soboleski at Fairview, right? Mike Cray with, bringing back Mike Mishler at Cathedral Prep. There are so many longtime coaches, but then you think of the new ones and the ones that we haven't necessarily talked about. Josh Blood gets his Conneaut Eagles into the playoffs after having a disaster of the last couple of campaigns. Manny Johnson is starting to turn around Iroquois to the point where they're starting to put up points and playing competitive. And then you look at some of the third-year guys, Jack Corey, Marshall McCormick, all of those new and young coaches that are starting to implement a different style of game. And the thing that I will say, too, is how many times did we talk about on this podcast, guys, that there are so many different ways that coaches are now playing football games and strategizing, whether it's Marshall's version of going down the field in 60 seconds or Ray Collins's wing tee where you run the ball 15 times, or it's Fort LaBeouf with the same thing. But there's different ways to win, and they all work. And we all saw those ways work in certain ways this season. And it shows that there's diversity in coaching, there's diversity in playbooks and skill sets, and it just makes for a fun, week by week analysis of high school football in this area because you never know what's going to happen. And for us, that's where we get our content from. So it's so much fun.
Makes our lives easier.
It makes our lives so much easier. And it's good to have Wayne back, by the way. I don't want to say I wish we didn't see you because obviously we'd be seeing GM tomorrow. But hats off to you, man, and a great season. Obviously, the way that it ended last week, but what a heck of a year. And man, football's not over. There's still 2 more District 10 teams in, but for us, it's like,
but when the Erie County teams go,
we want next year to be here already, right?
Oh, absolutely. I really think we went as far as we could have gone. Looking at Thomas Jefferson, looking at the matchup physically, they average over 270. Would have been a really difficult matchup for us, especially with Isaac going down. And I don't know if I would have wanted to play tomorrow night in 6 inches of snow or 3 inches of wet rain or whatever the forecast is tomorrow. But if you're gonna exiting, where you play a great football game that comes down to the wire and you compete, and even though you lose, your kids remember that for the rest of their life. They gave everything they had. They had an opportunity. They can hold their heads high, and they get taught that, life is hard. And that's one thing we talk about all the time is, sometimes you can give your best effort and do everything you can and come up on the short end. And you just, pick yourself up off the mat, and go do it again. And if that's the worst thing that happens to you in your life, you're going to live a good life.
Man, it's a bunch of fun. Sports are a bunch of fun. High school sports are a bunch of fun, and they matter. And these have been our District 10 football awards. Of course, we're still going to keep tabs on Hickory and Wilmington, but as we transition out of Thanksgiving, we're going to be talking about basketball season. The funny thing is a lot of the athletes that we talk about on football podcasts, we also will be talking about on basketball podcasts too, because a lot of these athletes are multi-sport athletes, and that's a really good thing. Hey, good news. If you watched our whole show, you currently have not missed any points except for a Chris Boswell field goal that he just made. It's only a 3-0 game with 10:52 to go in the second quarter. Guys, I'm telling you, I don't like this for Pittsburgh. I really don't like it. It's a low-scoring game. Wayne said 19-18. Gosh.
Oh, and the wind's going to start.
It just feels like a Cleveland AFC North game, but it just feels like a game Cleveland's destined to win.
You can't keep Cleveland close. If you keep them close in this game like it is right now, like I said, it's going to be a low-scoring affair. Cleveland gets that last-ditch touchdown. Yeah, it's you give them hope if you keep this up going into the second half.
Yeah, Cleveland better enjoy being able to play games in this weather. Brook Park is around the corner. Brook Park is around the corner.
Let me ask you, the over-under after Cleveland wins tonight in these conditions, do the fans really want to put them in a dome and play Russell Wilson and TJ Watt on a dry track where he can run the corner and sack the quarterback all the time?
Well, as long as you build it like AT&T Stadium, you can take the roof off. Just don't ask Jerry Jones's contractors to build it for you.
Yeah.
Because
close it, but don't open it.
Because within a decade, it'll be
windows closed.
It'll be gone on you. My goodness. Well, at least the Brown Stadium isn't falling apart just yet. Hey, want to thank you all for being a part of our show tonight. Again, we are, as always, brought to you by Rebridge Investments, powered by Rebridge Investments as well. They keep financial guidance simple. For more info, make sure to visit their website, www.rebridgeinvestments.com, or call today at 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. I know that Todd is in-depth watching this game and maybe watching our podcast as well. Hey, want to make a mention. We are back tomorrow night. For all those of you, we've got a big viewing audience right now who are watching. We're back tomorrow earlier than normal. 7 p.m. is our show tomorrow night. We got a lot to talk about. The four of us are right back on the horn. Sean Pebbles from the Camps is going to join us. We're going to talk Buffalo Bills and where their season is, and are they legitimate Super Bowl favorites, and our Thanksgiving food draft. It's a 4-round, 4-pick draft where the four of us will compete for the best Thanksgiving food roster. The number 1 pick is going to surprise you depending on who gets it tomorrow night. So make sure to join us. It'll be a fun Thanksgiving special. And then for our Gem City episodes, we're off until the week after, back on Monday with Flagship City Sports Talk. But those are going to be our episodes for the rest of the week. So make sure to join us tomorrow, everybody. Thanks again for being with us tonight. Enjoy the rest of the Steelers-Browns. We'll see how it goes. We'll watch along with you. Toodles, everybody. Enjoy your Thursday.